Hi, I'm Pedro from Coffee Parts, and today we have the two latest grinders from both Switzerland and Italy to enter the home market. The Mahlkonig X54 and the Eureka XL. Both big brand names, both well known, and both similar on paper. Let's look into it and see what makes them different. On paper, these two machines are actually quite similar. Apart from the obvious where the Eureka is a bit smaller, their output, their numeric data is similar, but they've taken different approaches. Eureka have tried to build a machine that's physically small, quiet, low retention, and fast. When Mahlkonig was really focused on particle size distribution and trying to get the higher TDS in their coffee. So the way they went about this was effectively speed and blade size. When Eureka went for the 65mm blade and a bigger motor, Mahlkonig went for a 54mm blade at a slower RPM. That's saying that Mahlkonig's doing about 1 gram per second, while Eureka's doing about 3 grams per second on espresso. Now that will vary depending on your roast profile, the hardness of your bean, size of your bean, and grind adjustment, but they're a good indication of speed. Effectively, the Eureka is 3 times faster. But the result is measured basically in the machine and the particle size consistency. And when we looked at it, the Mahlkonig was a little bit more consistent there. The other thing that both these grinders claim is to be quite quiet, with the Eureka claiming 60 decibels and the Mahlkonig 70. Although when we measured it, and we'll show you later, we were getting on the high 70s, early 80s, depending on where we were measuring it, either the front or the rear of the machine. So I guess it depends on the position of the machine in your kitchen or office setup. In terms of hoppers, they've both gone very similar, 500 grams versus 300 grams. And in terms of dialing in the machine, we got the knob kind of adjustment where it's stepless, infinite grind adjustments, and quite easy. Obviously, to go coarser, the machine doesn't have to be running. To go finer, you'd be better off running the machine, not to jam in those blades. In terms of the fork or portafilter support, both will hold the portafilter for hands-free operation. And in terms of dialing in the time, we found the Eureka a little bit easier, with the menu being like a single, double, just go up and down in time. If you wanted to like lock that menu, you could lock it, or if you wanted to grind on demand, you could also do it that way. Super intuitive, super easy. On the Mahlkonig, it was a little bit more work, where you'd basically have to hold in the button, let it flash, and go through each time adjustment. When you're done, hold it down again, and you're set for that program. Not hard to do, but Eureka did win in that case. Now, the ultimate test is always in the cup, and we were playing with these machines earlier, and in reality, they all came very similar, but the Mahlkonig was a little bit more consistent. In terms of grinding output, we had the laptop out, and both of them came into a variance of 0.2 of a gram shot after shot. We were aiming for 20 grams, and we were getting between 19.9 and 20.1. I think there's a bit of B-roll showing that earlier, but yeah, both actually very similar. So they've really gone head to head, Switzerland versus Italy. One thing we did like about the Eureka was the physical smaller footprint. It really does make a difference in a tight environment, when the Mahlkonig does, not by much, but take up a bit more room. In saying that, it does have more presence, which can be nice. On the Eureka XL compared to the smaller Mignon, the numbers are actually on the front, which makes it easier to see. And on the Mahlkonig, you've also got the numbers on the front. Now, the numbers don't mean much, but it gives you a really indication of how much you moved if you are trying to get really hone in on that grind adjustment. So let's get into it. And let's look at the decibels, let's look at the grind output, let's look at how easy they are to adjust in practice. One big factor we always get asked is how loud are these grinders? And we understand people are used to grinders in a cafe environment, which are quite loud, and for a home environment, it's gonna wake up the kids, the neighbors, whatever. Honestly, if your neighbors are gonna wake up, maybe you need a thicker wall. But apart from that, let's look into it and measure one by one what the decibel reading is on each one. Now, we know that Eureka says 60 and Mahlkonig says 70, but let's look at the decibel, and you'll notice that the decibels vary from the front to the rear a bit. So I've got the decibel meter up, and if we start grinding, we'll see what it does. So we're picking up around the machine, get quite close to the machine, the high 70s. And now in reality, you're standing a bit further than what we are registering. And if you were further away, the sound does drop quite dramatically. So on the Mahlkonig, we were getting high 70s. So Mahlkonig claims 70, and I guess that's probably about right, depending on how far away they're measuring it, and the fact that they're probably not using an iPhone decibel meter, they're probably using something a little bit more sophisticated. The Eureka grinder. Now let's measure this one and see what it comes out as. As this grinder is a lot faster, the measurement's going to be over a smaller time frame. So as you can see on the Eureka, we're kind of measuring the high 80s, and basically that means that the Mahlkonig was high 70s, Eureka high 80s, both higher than what the factories claim, yet quite low for a coffee grinder in the market. In saying that, we're using an iPhone. I'm pretty sure there's better recording devices out there, but this is more just a comparison between the two and to show that they are quite quiet. Another simple test is a dosing consistency test. Like between shots, how many grams are you getting out consistently? So let's take a look now at what these machines do over 3 shots. Earlier we did it over 20 and logged it on a spreadsheet, and we actually know what the variance is, but let's look on camera at what it's going to do. The first one came in at 21 even. Whoop, 21 even. Now let's go for shot number 2. We've got 21.1, 21, what's the scale I want to do? 21.1. So we've got 0.1 grams variance, which is what we saw earlier. We actually saw up to a 0.2 of a gram in variance in our 20 shots. But let's see what this third one does, and we'll compare it. We've got once again 21 grams. So the variance between the 3 shots was 0.1 of a gram, which is very neat for a home grinder. So we had 21 grams, 21.1, but it actually was like kind of tossing between it, and the third one was back to 21. Super consistent. We actually found slightly bigger variance over 20 of them, but over these 3, it was like almost spot on perfect. Now let's look at the Eureka. Just to confirm, the portafilter start at 0, and let's go first run. So we've got 20.1 grams. Once again, just ooh, the scale's off. Let's go. Once again, spot on, 20.1 grams. And this time round, 20.5 grams. So this one was thrown out just slightly. Let's do a 4th one just to make sure. That was actually a bigger gap than what we did over the 20 in testing. And back to 20.1, spot on. So we had 3 at 20.1. We had 1 that was at 20.5. Not sure what happened there, but it's showing it's really consistent. And same with the Mahlkönig. So when we did our test of 20 on each one, we actually found a variance of 0.2 grams, identical on each one. But now in the 3 runs that we did on each was a variance of 0.1 on the Mahlkönig and no variance on the Eureka, except for that one shot that was wrong. There might have been some coffee left in the portafilter between knocking it out, and I may have not noticed it because it was a bit bigger number than usual. But yeah, so the grinders are very similar in terms of their dose output. Now we've tested sound, we've tested dose. We can look at speed, although we already know what the speed is. So at the moment for 20 grams, we're looking at 18.8 on the X54, and we're looking at 6.8 on the Eureka. For a home environment in which speed isn't everything, it probably doesn't matter so much. In a cafe environment, it's crucial. You need to be pumping out those shots. The reason why there's such a variance in speed is they've taken a different approach to grinding, where Mahlkönig wanted to go to a softer grind, really get that particle size distribution neat, get that higher TDS. Eureka wanted a balance between it all. So 2 different approaches, 65mm blades versus 54, higher RPM, but effectively the result is quite similar. So it really depends up to you on what you're looking for out of a grinder. The last thing is, how easy are they to adjust? How easy are they to dial in, both from a grinder perspective and a digital perspective? So let's look at each one and see which one is best. Now let's look at operating these machines on a daily basis. How do you turn them on, fill the hopper, shut off the hopper, adjust, dial in, etc. Both have very simple power switch on the rear for the X54, power switch on the side for the Eureka XL. The hoppers are hoppers, obviously you fill them up, and both have cutoffs to shut down the hopper and remove it in case you want to run out any grinds and change your beans. Both have removable portafilter supports. In the Eureka's case, you just move it up and then pull it out, and you do that to use your catch if you wanted to say for filter coffee, or you're grinding into a dosing cup into your portafilter. Obviously goes back in easily. On the Mahlkönig, to remove the portafilter support, you've got a little button here on the side, on this side. The portafilter support comes out, and you can put in the support for your filter coffee. So now you can run into a dosing cup like this, whether it's for filter or dosing cup for your espresso. Once again, this pops out and in goes your portafilter support. Now we did find it easy to do with turned off, because you do sometimes activate the micro switch and it grinds onto your hand. In terms of dialing in, on both machines, we actually found the Eureka slightly easier, where you go single or double, or you hit them both for grind on demand. On the double, you just go up and down in the time and you're set. If you want to lock that so you don't change that time by accident, hit the plus and minus same time and it's now locked in. Unlock it, it's double, single, grind on demand. Super easy to operate, super user friendly. On the Mahlkönig, you've got 4 pre-adjust settings, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or the grind on demand. And to change the time, you just hold in that switch and you go up and down. So if we were to go up, it would just move into 20 seconds. If we keep going up, we'll go 21 seconds. When you're ready, just hold it in and you've locked that in. So you've got 4 different settings. Pretty much you could run the first 2 just say for espresso and the last 2 for filter coffee, and remember what dial number you adjust, and you can shut off. Not the most practical to go between espresso and filter, and if you are looking at a filter only grinder, you probably look at like a fellow ODE instead of these grinders. But if you wanted to have a grinder that does both, you don't have room in the kitchen for 2, then you'd look at something like this. So you've got the option to do both, but effectively I presume most people would be running these as espresso grinders. Now, in terms of the cleaning aspect, we actually found that with the Mahlkönig, there was less spray of coffee. It was basically kept cleaner through the operation. Everything landed in the portafilter. With Eureka, it was a little bit more of a mess, but you do have a grounds catcher, a mat on the Eureka, and you have a little tray on the Mahlkönig. In terms of cleaning the blades, you'd really want to shut off the hopper, grind out whatever's in there, and then instead of using coffee beans, using something like the grinder cleaner or Cafetto grinder burr cleaner, where it's effectively, they almost look like beans, and you run them through, cleans all the residue from the blades, and then you put in 1 to 2 shots for seasoning after that. Simple to clean. Both of them come with a sort of brush that you can clean around it, but effectively there's not much maintenance in these grinders. If you do read the manuals, they say to clean them once a week depending on usage. Probably a little bit overkill. I think they do that more just to avoid any long-term issues, but we just seem to run them without any difficulties. And that's kind of the overview to operating these grinders. Now looking through it, we've looked at both grinders. Very similar on paper, slightly different to operate. You've got the Mahlkonig, which is a bit slower, call it 1 gram per second, with Eureka that's a bit faster at around 3 grams per second. Similar hopper capacity. The Mahlkonig came in slightly lower on noise, a little bit higher than what they claimed, but we got mid 70 decibels when we got mid 80 decibels on the Eureka. In terms of usability, both simple to adjust. I did find the Eureka's a lot quicker to dial in and adjust than the Mahlkonig. In terms of performance, the coffees did seem a little bit more consistent out of the X54, but in terms of dosing consistency, they were both spot on. On the video, the Eureka nailed it, and the Mahlkonig was 0.1 grams variance. In our testing earlier, over 20 coffees, it was a 0.2 variance on both. So I actually don't know which one I'll choose. One's got a smaller footprint, one's got a slightly better espresso. They're both in the same price point and they both look good, easy to operate. So it really comes down to personal preference. There's no right or wrong, and I do feel whichever one you bought, you're gonna be happy at home. Your espressos are gonna be spot on and you're gonna be happy. So really is up to you guys. I'm curious, what do you guys think is the better grinder? Which one do you have? Which one do you want? Leave a comment below and let me have a look at what is your thoughts out there. And like always, if you've liked this video, hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more content to you and you always have the latest notices. Thank you again. I'm Pedro from Coffee Parts.